I'm grateful to all of you for being here, and know that this is no easy conversation or no easy topic. I'm really thrilled to partner with Sarah Cohen. You see her name on the screen, works with CJE. Sarah has joined the life enrichment staff at CJE as a community health educator. She has extensive experience and training in brain health and memory care. She's worked at different residences in Milwaukee and memory care units, and as a facilitator for Recharge, a brain health and wellness program for individuals with early stage memory loss. She's also worked as a geriatric care manager with community dwelling seniors at Jewish Family Services in Milwaukee, as well as in Chicago. She's trained as a life coach, and she has certification in positive approach to care and Alzheimer's Association. She has a master's degree in public health from Boston University and a graduate certificate in geriatric care management from the University of Florida. So Sarah brings to us incredible credentials and also just an incredible wealth of a listening ear. I get some people on here. A compassionate ear. And we're really having this conversation because people in our community have asked for it. And you know, I am happy to I'm open to the possibility of having some support for those of us who have family members with memory loss over a longer term. But in my experience, I'd rather start with one program and something small. And then if there's a larger interest, we can have a bigger conversation. We're here for different reasons, and we're here, these are tough conversations. As many of you know, I wear a rabbi hat. I also wear a child of a parent with memory loss. And so I recognize how hard these conversations are and how important it is to reach out to our community for resources and for help. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, so there's no pressure on what I'm about to ask, but if you want to say what brought you here today, I invite you to unmute or raise a hand, and I'll, and let you speak. But there is no pressure to do that, because I know that may, in and of itself, be an uncomfortable thing. Stacey?
My mother had dementia, and I saw her through that. It was eye-opening, to say the least. And a very dear friend of mine who's on the West Coast has dementia. And I did invite his wife to participate in this. She couldn't at this time, but dementia and memory issues are with us, and we're all going to be touched by it in one way or another, whether through our own families or through our friendships. So I just look to learn more in how to cope and how to support people.
Thanks, Stacey. Anyone else want to? Norm?
Yes, my sister, who lives in New Jersey, was recently diagnosed with early onset dementia. And we've had a number of phone conversations to keep up the contact, which I'm finding very difficult. And so this certainly is a wonderful opportunity for me to get a better idea as to how I can help, or at least be supportive in terms of the contact, although New Jersey to Chicago was not easy.
It's not, I do it, but it's doable. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Nadine?
I come from a family, my grandparents all passed away when I was very young, under 10. Both my parents were only children, so I've got no aunts or uncles. My father passed away 5 years ago. I expected my mother to have a chapter 2 in her life and blossom, and instead, I think she has dementia. So I'm unfamiliar with how to navigate this. Only daughter, so just trying to figure it out.
Sorry, thanks. Julie?
Yeah, hi. So much like Lisa, I have a mother who's got advanced dementia / Alzheimer's. My mom happens to be in a facility for memory care, and it's wonderful. I'm struggling with how, when I visit her, which I visit her fairly often, how I can add value, bring the love when there's just so much she doesn't remember. She does know me, but beyond that, there's not a lot she recalls. Thank you.
Thanks. Jim. Sarah, I don't want to cut anyone off. I just go on. Okay, Sarah, I'm going to turn to you to start. Sarah's going to speak, and then we'll have an opportunity afterwards for questions and answers. We are recording this, and let me just be clear that for any video that we share publicly, we will cut out any personal conversations of yours. It would just be Sarah's presentation. It wouldn't be Q&A or the introductions at the beginning. We've found that for these kind of programs, it's really helpful to record it because not everyone can be on at the moment and they come back to it. So that you won't, your conversations won't be there. Sarah, thank you for joining us today and sharing that.
Thank you, Rabbi Greene, and also thank you for everybody being so candid and honest. And I hope what we talk about speaks to the issues and interests you're bringing to this conversation. And like Rabbi Greene said, we can open up the conversation after I speak and have sort of a more informal conversation and speak to your concerns. So I'm going to go back a little bit and tell you about how I got involved in working with memory care and dementia. So I started in about 2012 at the Helen Bader unit, which is at the Jewish Home and Care Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And that is an early to mid-stage dementia unit in a continuum care long-term facility. And when I was there for about 6 years, and I noticed a trend while I was there, which is that people were coming to memory care later and later in the disease process. And I really believe that the reason why that was happening is because of all of the community support programs that are cropping up and becoming available to people, so that now people who are living with the earlier stages of dementia can do so from their home or from assisted living facilities or independent facilities with support. And I think that's a really positive thing. And while I was at the Jewish Home, I also worked at a program called Recharge, which Rabbi Greene mentioned. And Recharge was an amazing community-based program for people who are living at home and experiencing the early stages of memory loss. And that program really was wonderful. It met for 4 hours a day, and you could come 3 to 5 days a week. And it provided stimulation for people. It provided a supportive environment for people. It was, there was just laughter and community building, and it was a beautiful thing to be a part of. And it also additionally gave people who were experiencing the beginning of a journey of caring for people with memory loss, much needed respite. So it's that balance. It's meeting the needs of the person who is struggling with memory issues, and it's also creating a support for people who are caregiving. And I think in the North Shore, there's a very similar program called the House of Welcome. And that's through the North Shore Senior Center. And I've never been there, but from what I've read about it, it's pretty similar in what it does to Recharge. So I'm just going to begin by mapping out the continuum of resources that are available as sort of one progresses through dementia. So there are memory cafes, and memory cafes are beautiful places that are welcoming to people who have dementia and their care partners. So they're places where the care partner and the care recipient come together and share an experience, and it's upbeat and it's positive, and it just creates an important place to have those shared experience and start to build community. So generally memory cafes meet for once a month or twice a month. And I don't know what's been happening so much with COVID, but I think they're starting to go back to in-person meeting now. And then there are adult day services. And adult day services can look like a Recharge program or a House of Welcome, or they can be more extensive full-day programs. And adult day services are places in a professional setting where people who are needing more care can come in a supervised setting and it can be people who need more care or who are isolated, who are lonely, and then get to participate in planned programs while getting services that they need, meals provided, even baths and things like that, which can become a struggle as people are progressing through dementia. So again, providing respite for family. And then there's respite care, and respite care can take different forms. Respite care can look like a professional caregiver coming into the home for short periods of time. It can be an adult day center, or it can even be a short-term experience in a care facility. So you don't have to be admitted to a memory care to be able to go for a week or two to respite care. And most memory care facilities have programs like that. And you just have to call them and make an arrangement for a short-term stay. And then of course there are memory care facilities, which is a form of residential long-term care that provides more intensive supportive services for people with memory issues. So that's sort of the scope of programs that are available. And I just want to take a second to talk about what I'm doing now at CJE. So at CJE, I'm primarily involved in working on a dementia training program called Dementia Reality. And its intention is to enhance empathy in caregiving. And we've developed it for professional caregivers, but hopefully we're going to reach out and scope to family caregivers and first responders. And what we're doing is we're breaking out of the medical model when we're talking about dementia. And we're starting to talk about it from an empathetic approach. So we're teaching skills, but we're doing it all from a person-to-person connection, and really basing it in just empathy and how we relate to each other. And we're doing that through virtual reality. So we're using virtual reality technology to actually step into the experience of somebody who has dementia. And it's really powerful and very impactful. And then we also use the technology to step into a caregiver's role. And we can show through virtual experience how using empathy can enhance both the practical and the emotional aspects of caregiving. So it's an exciting program that I'm very fortunate to be and excited to be a part of. So in terms of what we're going to talk about today, I think this is a diverse group. And so I'm planning on keeping this, next 20 minutes or 15, 20 minutes pretty general. And then again, afterwards, we can get into more specifics. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about normal aging and when you start to notice what's not part of normal aging. I'll talk about mild cognitive impairment and then how we start to recognize when you're seeing the early signs of dementia or Alzheimer's disease. And then finally, a little bit about how if this is happening in your life, how you start to prepare yourself to be on this caregiving journey. So I hope that sounds okay with you guys. Yeah. So, yeah. Can everybody hear me, by the way? Because I've been told my audio is a little off. Okay. So before we begin, does everybody have a pen and paper handy? I'm going to make this a little interactive here. So I just want to take 15 seconds, 30 seconds, and have you write down what you're hoping to get out of this discussion today, or a question that you have about dementia. So we're not going to do anything with that question now, but after I speak, we can reflect on whether those questions were answered. Okay, so now here's the fun part. Now that you have your pens and paper out, I'm going to start by pulling something out of our dementia training. So at the beginning of our training, this is a very abbreviated version of an exercise that we do where we talk about personhood. And by personhood, I mean how we identify the qualities and unique attributes that we all have, that every person has, that makes them a unique human being. And we begin by talking about the layers of self. So we talk about it in like 3 concentric circles. So we have this outer layer of self, which is the self that we show the world. And this is full of our sort of roles and our identities and what everybody who looks at us is seeing. And then we have circle, the second circle, the concentric circle, is our private self. And that's the self that we share with our friends and our family. And that's where our talents and our interests and our passions come out and how we express those things. And then we have this inner circle, which is our core self. And that's the part of ourselves where we hold our strengths and our beliefs and the things that make us most unique, and the things actually ultimately that will carry us through our lifetime, regardless of whether we develop memory impairment or not. It's our core self. It's where our personhood, our deepest values and personhood live. So in the training that we do, what we do is we have all of the caregivers think of 25 words in all of these layers that make up our unique personality and make us this one-of-a-kind person. But so for today's purposes, what I'd like you to do is take a minute and think about your three of your core qualities, your core values, or your core strengths, or the things that are in your innermost layer. And don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to share these unless you want to out loud, but I just want you to put a minute of thought into 3 things that make you essentially you, your strengths or your values. And I'm actually going to give you a minute to write these things down. But so just for the sake of example, if I've 3 core strengths I've identified in myself are compassion and balance and curiosity. So that's an example, that type of thing. So just take a minute. I'm just going to look for eye contact to see when everybody's finished. Okay. So you can just put those things to the side now. And I'm actually going to start by sharing some slides with you, because you probably need a little bit of a break from my face, but also because I think Rabbi Greene, I think you need to enable sharing for me.
I'm just doing it. Give me one second. You're good.
Okay. One sec. Sorry. What do you see now?
A black screen at the moment, but there's hope. No, there we go.
There it is.
Do you see normal signs of aging now?
You're good. Go for
Yeah.
it.
Okay. So I'm just going to start by sharing some of the basics about cognitive changes, because I think when you love somebody and they're experiencing changes, it can be hard to know what's normal and what's not normal. So I think it's that fear of, is this normal, that can create a lot of anxiety for people. So with normal aging. The brain starts to slow down just like the rest of the body. And it can be challenging to figure out what's a normal process part of aging and what's not. But essentially, normal aging commonly involves slower processing speeds, more trouble multitasking, a slight decrease in mental flexibility, some difficulty with word finding. But the important thing to know is that routine memory, language, and knowledge remain stable and can even improve with aging. Older adults retain verbal abilities, including their vocabulary, even though it might be hard to remember or take longer to remember a name or a word. And one can experience a mild decrease in short-term and working memory, but long-term memories and events remain intact. So I have a little, hold on. Can you hear me?
We're on it. We can hear you and we're on a second slide. You're good.
Okay, fine. I have this little thing that's popping up. I'm going to shut. Okay, so mild cognitive impairment. Mild cognitive impairment is on the continuum between normal aging and dementia. Mild cognitive impairment, there causes changes that are serious enough for a person who's experiencing to be aware of them, or family and friends can become aware of these cognitive changes, but they're not serious enough to affect a person's ability to complete everyday tasks. And it's not serious enough or significant enough to be a dementia diagnosis. And approximately 12 to 18% of people who are over 60 are living with mild cognitive impairment. Some people might go on to develop dementia, others will not. Sometimes mild cognitive impairment reverts back to normal cognition, or sometimes there's a dip in cognition and then that remains stable. Sometimes medication can cause changes in cognitive impairment, or something that's similar to a medication where mild cognitive impairment or dementia can be mistakenly diagnosed. So it's very important that when people are experiencing cognitive changes to seek out medical help, because one of the first things they'll do is rule out underlying conditions that might present as mild cognitive impairment. And it's believed that 1 in 9 cases of mild cognitive impairment go on to become dementia. Hold on, I lost my little. Okay, so here we have a chart that compares normal aging and not normal aging. And I'm not going to read through this whole thing with you, but just to give you some.
Sarah, can you make it a little bit bigger? It's the print is small.
Yeah, how's that?
Great, thanks.
Better? Okay. So with memory loss, for example, it's very normal to forget a name momentarily or where you placed your keys. But if, in fact, you're forgetting the names of people who are really familiar to you, or how you got somewhere, or you're driving and you get lost, those are not normal parts of aging. Balancing a checkbook. So if you normally balance a checkbook and you start to make more errors, you don't have to get super concerned. That's a normal part of aging. But if all of a sudden you start to forget the steps or the sequence of balancing a checkbook, that's an indication that something is not normal. I'll do one more, is disorientation. We often forget what day of the week it is, or you walk into a room, you forget why you walked into that room. But if you forgot how you got somewhere, or again, if you get lost in a familiar place, that is not normal. So, all of these areas of comparison, trouble with word finding, they're on a continuum. There is going to be some changes we age, but there are markers that are not normal. And I'll actually go into them a little bit more. We're going to look at the Alzheimer's list of warning signs of dementia. But before that, it's important to know what questions to ask yourself if you're starting to be concerned. So sometimes you can be forgetful, but is being forgetful a significant departure from the baseline of the person? Some people are just forgetful by nature. But is there a marked difference for this person? Has there been a sudden or any kind of increase in incidents? Or are you starting to know that hygiene or nutrition or safety are becoming issues? And if they are, then these are signs that things are not normal. So the Alzheimer's Association lists 10 early signs of Alzheimer's. And I am actually going to go through them with you. If you start to notice any of these signs, it's really important to reach out and start with your primary care physician. Early intervention is so critical when you start to notice things, because I'll go in after we talk about this list. I'll talk about why early intervention is so important. But so let's go through this list. So memory loss that disrupts daily life. So one of the most common signs of Alzheimer's is forgetting recently learned information, forgetting dates, forgetting events, asking the same question over and over, needing to rely on memory aids or family for things that were handled on one's own. So it's normal to forget appointments occasionally or friends' phone numbers, but a person with Alzheimer's disease will forget things more often or have difficulty remembering information that was recently learned. Challenges in planning or problem solving. So people with dementia will have an increasingly difficult time working with numbers or plans, and they might start to have trouble with things they were accustomed to doing regularly, like following a recipe or paying monthly bills. That's a sign that there's a problem. Difficulty performing familiar tasks. So some examples are difficulty driving to familiar locations, organizing a grocery list, remembering how to play a favorite game. Disorientation in time and space. So again, it's common to forget why you walked into a room or forget for a minute what the day of the week is, but people with Alzheimer's can become very lost in a familiar place. You're walking down the street and can't find your house, or forgetting how they got to a place that they just went. Trouble understanding visual and spatial relationships. So vision can become a problem with people with Alzheimer's. There can be issues with judging distances, with color contrast, and this can show up in driving a lot of the time. So if you start to notice somebody's having a lot of trouble with driving, that's an indicator. Problems with language. So lots of people can have trouble finding the right word to express what they're saying, but a person with Alzheimer's disease will forget simple words or can regularly substitute words like thingy for common nouns. Common nouns drop out. So also using the wrong noun or flipping words in a sentence is an indicator. Misplacing things. So like we said, you can misplace a wallet or your keys, but someone with Alzheimer's disease might put things in really inappropriate places. Like all of a sudden the iron will be in the freezer or a wristwatch will be in the sugar bowl. So that's an indicator. Impaired judgment. So everybody has questionable judgment from time to time, but somebody with Alzheimer's disease might show up wearing heavy clothes on a hot day or leave a stove on. Changes in personality. Oh wait, I missed one. Loss of initiative. So because a person with Alzheimer's can have increasing difficulty following a conversation or holding on to a thread of conversation, you might notice a real withdrawal from activities. So people can become very withdrawn from hobbies, from social activities and other engagements. And you might notice changes in personality. So we all change in subtle ways, and becoming a little more irritable as we get old is considered part of normal aging. But somebody with Alzheimer's disease may have much more striking personality changes, like becoming confused or suspicious or withdrawn, stopping having interest in things that they had interest in, acting out of character, or becoming fearful. So, hang on here while I go to the next slide. So is that too big? Hang on.
No.
So the list that I just read is from the Alzheimer's Association. So that was specifically talking about Alzheimer's disease. So one thing that I really want to point out is that there are believed to be between 50 and 100 types of dementia. And they talk about it as the umbrella of dementia. So here I've listed the most common types of dementia. And each one of them has its own very predictable progression and symptoms and behaviors associated with them. So they present very differently. Sometimes there are similarities, but there can be a very different presentation as well. And most dementia is chronic and irreversible, but there are things that can, as I said before, when we were talking about mild cognitive impairment, mimic the symptoms of dementia. So again, this is why it's so important to seek out medical help, because there are so many conditions that can look like dementia. And when that underlying condition is resolved, the cognitive problems resolve as well. So early intervention when you notice changes is, again, very critical. So let's just talk again about when you're intervening early. If there is a diagnosis given for dementia, there are all of these domains that can be addressed. So the first place you want to start is with your primary care physician. And a lot of primary care physicians now have the ability to diagnose dementia, but they also, if they are not skilled in diagnosis, then they'll refer you to somebody who can make a diagnosis. There are psychologists and neurologists, and there are many ways to assess dementia, and up to 90% with up to 90% accuracy. So getting somebody to go through to the right place and go through this series of tests will give you a pretty accurate diagnosis of if you're talking about dementia or not. So as I keep stating, there's so many benefits, which include, if you're picking up dementia early, medical planning, how you manage symptoms, legal and financial planning, and for social and emotional purposes. And there are many people who can help you navigate this. Even on the Alzheimer's Association, which, by the way, is an unbelievable resource. They have incredible information, and they can link you to Alzheimer's navigators. So in each of these domains, you can actually fill out paperwork, and they connect you then with a navigator, and you can make a plan in any or all of these categories and work with them. Also, geriatric care managers are wonderful people to meet with and start to create plans. So I just want to close this part of the conversation by talking about the caregiving journey. And so you may or may not identify with the role of caregiver. Some people choose to be a caregiver, but a lot of time caregiving chooses us. So if you're providing rides to appointments, if you're helping somebody with meals, if you're paying bills, if you're helping with dressing or bathing somebody, if you're taking care of any housekeeping duties, if you're managing medications for somebody, if you're arranging services for somebody that you love or care about, then you are a caregiver. And it's just so important to recognize that this disease affects you as well as the person who's going through cognitive changes. So I just implore you to take the opportunity early on to create a roadmap for the person that you love, but also creating a roadmap for yourself. Caregiving, when it's not planned, can feel just like you're going from crisis to crisis, and it can be just depleting and exhausting. But honestly, caregiving can also be an opportunity, and it can be a calling to harness your strengths and grow from your challenges. So that's why it's so important to know your personality and to know your strengths and to know your weaknesses. So you can be really clear on what you're good at and honest about what you're not good at. So you can articulate the help that you need, and create a circle of support around you and ask for the help you need. But sometimes if you haven't taken time to evaluate what you're good at and what you're not good at, you don't even know what help to ask for. So if you want to take a look back now at the strengths that you wrote down when I started talking, use these as a springboard for a journey into caregiving, and even create affirmations out of your strengths and carry them with you. And before you're interacting with somebody who has dementia, take a deep breath and remember what your strengths are and remember what you want to bring to the relationship, because you have these unique gifts that were given to you. And caregiving, though incredibly stressful, is also really an opportunity to bring these gifts forward in the world and to create a beautiful connected relationship with somebody you love who might be experiencing dementia. So even though it's a hard topic and it's a stressful topic, there are so many opportunities for us to grow in this journey. So yeah, it's a very personal and intense journey, but I think just being prepared for it emotionally and with information is essential.
Thanks, Sarah. Sarah, do you want to close the screen share for a second?
I'm going to close the screen. I actually wanted to, maybe before I close the screen, just run through what CJE services are.
Great,
because-
that would be terrific. That'd be really important.
Great. So I'm going to go on and talk about CJE really quickly. We provide direct care to elder care, and we also facilitate access to referrals and services. We have 25 programs and services. I've highlighted the one that are kind of pertinent to the conversation that we've had today. We have adult day services in Evanston and Deerfield. We have assisted living at Weinberg Community. We have Gidwitz and the Friend Center for Memory Care, so I pulled out adult day services, our Deerfield campus, Gidwitz, and most specifically for Alzheimer's, the Friend Center for Memory Care, which, you know, is a memory care facility. So now I will stop sharing.
Friend Center is residential as well as respite?
Mhm. It's primarily residential, but they have respite care, and I believe they run their adult day program out of there as well.
Thanks, Sarah.